love you truly, truly, dear. Life with its sorrow, life with its tear, fades into dreams when I feel you are near. For I love you truly, truly, dear.
Gracious ones, I speak of the serenade of the soul. I speak of the beauty that the soul drinketh from a wild rose. I speak of the beauty of God as it filters through the air, in the descending waves of energy from the great solar orb. I speak of the fragrance of hearts, and of how divine love, compassion, and understanding are wafted as upon a gentle breeze between the shores of men's hearts, teaching them of the hidden beauty of the soul. With the passing of the centuries, mankind have entered into a greater era of scientific and supposed cultural understanding. But as so many of you are aware of, the world is still so lacking in the simple rudiments of the sense of beauty and divine love among the masses, so that a vast cultural, educational, spiritual program is needed and required in order to extend to mankind the finer senses of the soul that will enable men to escape from the raucous manifestation of the world and its sense of dissonance, which it desires to call harmony. For men and women, misguided in thought and feeling, are often content with manifestations which at our level would even serve to jar the senses. For we would have no portion of that jangle of discord which mankind today have called music, and of that jangle of discord which mankind today call art. We know that as the lineaments of soul magnitude reach forth in the search for divine grace and beauty, that the cosmic spell is woven in the mind and consciousness, which causes men and women to be enamored of divine grace and to be comforted by the Spirit of God, finding then in the vast crux of creation, the cross of light, the mighty power of God descending into form and blending with the horizontal bar, fusing the great day star from on high into the consciousness, that then mankind have begun to live. Life, precious ones, does not consist of habit patterns which mankind have created and renewed again and again, unless perchance those habit patterns should resemble the consciousness of God and the full magnitude of his love, his beauty, and his sense of reality. To perpetuate the negations of mankind currently in vogue would be to create a race of misanthropes in a cosmic sense. But to understand the need to shed the paltry senses, the false glitter and glamour of the world, and do it with joy and alacrity, substituting the rightful manifestation which ought in the first place have taken preeminence, is the work of God and the Holy Spirit. For men have built very ill upon the foundation of cosmic manifestation. Their breath, their life, their substance, all that they are, comes forth from God, and they know it. Yea, I say unto you today, many of them know it and sense it. Yet even these, the supposed blessed of the world, are also a part of the nerve-jangling tensions of the world, creating and sustaining by the economy of their life, their person and purse, all that brings discord to the youth of the world and to those aged ones whom I fear would find difficulty in executing the maneuvers of the modern dance. You must understand then that to make a joyful noise unto God, to rejoice in the wonders of his universe, is to receive the knowledge which men call avant-garde. Is it avant-garde to receive the pure, simple joys of the Holy Spirit? Is it avant-garde to receive the grace of God? Is it avant-garde? Is it progressive to receive the manifestations of cosmic love and a sense of cosmic beauty? What a pity that men choose to call this avant-garde, when in reality it ought to have been their first love and the foundation stone upon which they would have builded the whole structure. Now, in an era of human discord, men choose to see progress in spiritual things as though it were afar from them, and yet they have a fond hope that one day they might be able to manifest it. Know ye not that the joy of God is in the eternal now, and the manifestation of the eternal now is today? The words of the masters have ever spoken, saying, Why will ye tarry? And yet the world tarries, and dalliance is still the order of the day. Now then, this does affect the individual, and the individual's sense of beauty, even his sense of integrity. But what do you suppose, precious ones, is done to those among mankind who have no knowledge of the light to counterbalance the sinister shadowed forms that cross their pathway? These are subject to the outer darkness, where there is indeed, as has puzzled many, a gnashing of teeth. For even the youth of the world have gnashed their teeth at the banality of life and the seeming vanity, even purposelessness to their consciousness of life. And in the blackness of despair, they have stripped from themselves the gift of life in the awful perdition of suicide. Understand then how very dire is the need for an awakening of the consciousness of mankind to a sense of reality and beauty, which by its Christ light and its strength of illumination is able to give genuine and lasting joy to the world, not only for that embodiment, but for all time to come. For it is certainly time that men should understand that when they build not for a moment, but they build for an eternity. and it is an eternity that waits the manifestation of perfection from within their souls. Yet they are shut off. Yet they are cut off from the sense of the beautiful and the good, because it does not seem to be popular. And there is always the question of tension, as the old habits of mortal thought and feeling refuse to yield to the gentle emerging sense of Christ consciousness. We understand the struggle, but we know the worth, the supreme worth of magnification of the divine ideal and its replacement in the consciousness of mankind of all that is mortal in thought and feeling. You must replace mortal thought and feeling by the purity of the divine ideal. Gracious ones, how tender is the love of God flowing through his creation. And it is a strange travesty indeed that simultaneously with the beautiful thoughts of God that stir the soul, and with the banners of the Lord waving from Shambhala, with the purity of the breezes of the Holy Ghost, and with the radiance of cosmic love flowing to the universe, that in the lower strata the manifestations of old records of human discord and old planetary and solar records of discord and vanity should yet hold some shreds of manifestation which tatters, and I spell it T-A-T-T-E-R-S, tatters, men hold to, as though they held the whole cloth, and they know not that they are naked by reason of exposure to these horror covenants which mankind have executed in their ignorance with the powers of density and shadow and darkness. The enclosures that have rendered man stupid and insensate to divine ideas. You see then, and you perceive how that beauty radiates through the world and through the universe, and they do not even catch the first notes of it. They strain in order to hear, but their ears have waxed dull, and their senses do not even measure up to their ears, which sometimes do catch a small strain of the melodies of heaven. And so as I came to you today, I said unto myself, Paul, with all of thy getting which thou hast received of cosmic understanding and a sense of beauty, it is needful that thou shouldst impart unto mankind upon the earth planet the wonderful grace that thou hast perceived and which has given unto thee thy liberty. And I said, I will impart and seek to impart to every heart that will listen and manifest the will to learn that there is a need to turn from all that is unhappy, that burns in the soul as a pricked conscience. And I said unto myself, I will impart beauty unto the listening ear, and a readiness for heaven and the security of cosmic domains, for the span of men's lives are very short indeed. And during those lives there is a great deal of struggle. And I said unto myself, the vision of great beauty is so fleeting, and the world's shadow and sordid manifestations so everywhere apparent, that the need is great to assuage the hungers of the soul and to bathe mankind in the liquid light essence of immortal compassion and freedom. And so today, as I address you, I choose to address the world at large, that the world at large may awake and partake of the beauty which God intended for all to share. that the lispings and sweetness of a child's holy prayer may rise from hearts that have attained a measure of outer seeming maturity, but have in reality not even the blessing of a child's security, the comfort that lays me down to sleep, to rest, and understands some small measure of the blessed, which in later year has flown no more to blossom in the mind and soul. O precious mankind of the earth, be thou made whole. And so, as I speak to you today, it is to acquaint you with the domain of heaven and the majesty of God's sacred heart. It is to understand for you, if necessary, what beauty God has imparted unto many of us ascended, and to cause you to recognize that all of your struggles in this domain are as naught, and the struggles of the flesh are of but little pain to that which the soul has suffered by its crucifixion in material sense consciousness, so that many times and oft, when men seem to be joyous, it is as though it were that God should hang his head, crucified within their sense of dimness and dullness, the great God of life and light and love, confined to the small room of their outer self. And then, I say, they cry pain when a small prick cometh in order to give them their eternal freedom. And they often do not understand struggle, and yet throughout the historical epoch of all great men in all times past, struggle and pain has been very much a part. And so we could almost say as law that struggle and pain are necessary, growing expansion pains to the soul of man as he becomes more illumined by cosmic grace and light, and able to serve more among mankind. And now, as we move in our consciousness into higher expressions of cosmic beauty and love, let us understand that much that is below will change, and necessarily so, in the consciousness as it becomes more divine. The outlook will change. The sense of manifestation will change from a small mortal acorn to a mighty towering oak. And the branches of this great tree of life, as in a fable old, will stretch across the world and enfold the soul with awareness of all of its many parts, and expand upward toward the stars. And so the senses of the soul will expand even beyond the leaves of the tree and the branches thereof. And the soul will take flight as a mighty bird, as an electric spark with infinite speed, going out to partake of universal mead, the nectar of God in the universe, that everywhere is quaffed by souls in whom the Holy Spirit manifests the fullness of cosmic communion. Now then, gracious ones, the domain of heaven is the realm of expansion. And so long as the soul is confined to the small, finite sense, it cannot possibly know the great divine infinite sense. For it is and has been concerned with many things of lesser stature. Now then, as you pause to think with me about the domain of heaven and man's readiness for wearing eternal garments and casting off the dust of mortal ones, you certainly must realize that this is an increase of stature. But unless there be some measure of the cosmic fire within thy soul, that which is so vast would seem to thee but an eternal awesomeness, and you would long for the confinements of form and sense as more real than the great cosmic domain into which it is the will of God thou shouldst enter. For he has not prepared for thee the gifts of smallness, but the gifts of largesse of his cosmic heart. And it is his will to give you the fullness of himself. And therefore he seeks to stretch the boundaries of thy soul so that thou canst in thy tent be as the tabernacle of the Almighty, a covering for all life, and that all life beneath thee may receive the outbreathing of the blessedness of thy true self as it enters in to a oneness with thy winged God-self. Cherubs thou art, in a sense. Thou art things of beauty, and therefore joyous forever. It is so easy for me today to come to you, trembling with the beauty of light. It is so easy for me to come to you and to express gratitude for the joy you paid unto me upon the occasion of the unveiling of my portrait, expressing in sketch form some of the light radiance, which is held encased, not as mold, but as light, within the domain of my form ascended consciousness. My gratitude to each of you and to all who have thus understood a portion of cosmic beauty within the heart, and to the artist, to the hands that served, my gratitude and eternal love in the beingness of cosmic beauty. Won't you please be seated? There is in the world today, and has been for a long time within the consciousness of men, a fear concerning the world and the universe, and concerning their birth and passage from the screen of time. Let me hasten to assure you that the gentle breath that floweth so normally into the child from the heart of God, that billows the sails of life and moves the ship forward for a time, simply returns to the great source, and the sails hang limp. This does not mean an end at all to existence, and therefore comfort should come to man to understand God's holy plan, to understand the way the soul goes, that the soul may be the vehicle that knows the fullness of the love of God and the beauty that flows. You see, gracious ones, it is all a perfect activity that dovetails together. For except God had given thee the consciousness that would descend into mortal form, thou couldst not ascend. For that part of thee which is above is always surfeited by his love. It has no need for anything, for all the treasures of universal joy within that consciousness do ring. And it is sounding now in thee and also in me. It is the mutual joy of interaction. But compassion dictated that a portion of this great flame should descend by love and light in his own name to be vested with individuality's flame. And so it was needful that thou shouldst descend to master form and put an end to all the density of mortal thought and reason, and win thy victory in due season, rejoicing and rising, ascending then to the place of love from whence thou came. So natural, so perfectly beautiful, and yet the law, with all its wonder and its awe, could not take from this realm of density the substance raw and unrefined, with all its human mortal propensity. It must of need refine the seed and generate a noble deed that wins the laurel with God's speed, that raises soul to God's own seat of joy without alloy, without cloy, without any substance to annoy. That paradise should remain paradise, and beauty should remain beauty, for men have mocked it. They have said of that which is ugly and banal and dissonant, it is joyous. And if we were to give to them in their day of darkness the power to confirm life, they would take of the tree of life, the fruit thereof, and perpetuate iniquity. And God is of too pure an eye to permit it. And therefore this is why the word went forth, man must die. It was not man that God sought to destroy. It was only that in man which would the law annoy. And it would annoy thee also, for there would be no paradise there if mankind were to struggle, if mankind were to compete, if mankind were to serve the laws of human deceit. It could not be. And therefore it is manifestation that dies, and not man. Not soul, for the soul has gone on in the schoolrooms of life to master, and to master strife and confusion it shall. But do not be annoyed, and do not be disturbed by outer circumstances, for they have no power over the soul if you will understand the goal and keep it ever before the eyes of the soul. For it is most essential in this simple way that you confirm God's life today for thyself, and know, I say know thyself as a being of great light, and change thyself, that neither the night or the night fright can disturb the tranquility of thy being. You recall the great drama of the master in the boat, how he lay fast asleep while the disciples, frightened and in terror, beheld the raging of the sea. This is a painting of great beauty. And you remember how that he arose as they became so affrighted. And with no other look than a calm demeanor of majestic command, he stretched forth his hand and said, "Peace, be still!" And the elements obeyed his will. This was majesty, confined in thee as well as in he, but you have not yet paid it heed and recognition. And when you do, you will perceive the need to act in the name of God to speed the advent of beauty in thyself and loveliness, and do it by turning to God. Do not look even for earthly examples below, except to serve to be one. Do not expect perfection in others, but expect it in thyself. I do not mean that you should not perceive it in others as the immaculate concept. I say to you, do not expect it, and then you will not be disappointed if it does not always manifest at a given time and opportunity. For I tell you, if you were to examine the records of your own self, you would not be so quickly then to speak unto others the word to condemn. You see, it is the love of God in all that sows the gentle seed of beauty and the sense thereof. And all must develop it for themselves. And it is the ascended Master's prerogative to develop it for ourselves and convey our assistance to you not only this day but every day. You have our love, you have our brotherhood, you have our assistance. But we would like to have yours because of the awful longevity of mortal persistence in doing their own will, while the will of God goes begging. And then, when the mighty law comes down and claims divine justice, and karma's activity stretches forth its hand, there is a weeping and gnashing of teeth, and mankind resent the halter of the law as it draws tightly upon their own neck. Let us then have respect for that law. It is a law of mercy and beauty also, for it is the law of your freedom. As the karmic lash falls, and mankind recognizes by and by what is wrong, and they correct it, then the song of life begins and is not ended. And so shall it always be, for we deal here with perfection and imperfection, with flesh and spirit, with mortality and immortality, with joy and sorrow, with compassion and with hatred. We deal here with the imperfections of man and the perfections of God. When imperfection ends its reign, the power of God shall manifest in all. That which I have said today shall not climax itself, and I shall not seek for a climax in worded form, although I think you know I am capable of it. I shall end this dissertation with a manifestation of a radiant outpouring of cosmic beauty, and I shall pray that your souls will drink that manifestation and emanation which shall pour forth so tangibly into your midst. But I want you to know that it is all that I have said that must be studied and read, not just a part. And while I am on this subject, let me say to you that there are few among you who have yet developed the correct sense of understanding the blessings you have via these outpourings of ascended Master love from the messengers of light. People are often prone to accept these things as though they were laws they had always known. If you have always known them, why no action? If you have always known them, why so little action? If you have always known them, why is your liberty not already yours? It is yours, but why are you not manifesting it? Therefore, you have a great and mighty need to understand speedily that you are privileged and a privileged people. We could close this door with a snap so soft the world would never hear it. Or we could close it with a door resounding against the very casements thereof that would shake the foundations of the earth. But I hope you understand that in keeping the door open for man, it is the raging of the great soul of man composite that seeks to free all men in this day and age, that the culmination of the ascended Master's love, long a gathering, should be a harvest of great light which would saturate the world, now with that perfection long awaited. So hear me, and heed me, and steady all that I have said. And I think that I shall have profitably conveyed some of this emanation, which in one sense of the word is now sprayed upon you. I thank you. Hast thou seen the Pleiades? Hast thou seen the bands of Orion? Hast thou beheld creation's fire? Then thou hast seen victory. Mighty is the fire of creation touched by the hand of God. And every earth peals forth her note of beauty in the orchestration of our Father, your God and my God. I am victory, and victory belongs unto you. I am the servant of mankind in the name of God, and I desire to serve you in obtaining that priceless heritage which God has reserved for those who love him enough to win their fight against all the forces of opposition that would tear from them their wings of light that God has given to all that they may rise. Be still and know your own I am presence. Be still and know the great source, for the cosmic clock shall not become unwound. The great life power of universal law will continue the creative round, and those who drop out of the holy place which God has reserved for them, the place of sacred uniqueness, which is the unity between man and all creation, will but be wandering stars to whom is reserved the mist of darkness forever. For the light of God does not fail, and if men choose to deny the possibility of their own freedom and victory, it is man who walks into the dark, and I declare it, they shall not take God with them, for the Lord dwelleth in the light, and the secret place of the Most High God is the place of light, and the soul of man is intended to be a palace of light, twinkling with myriad magnificent stars of consciousness. You recall in the enigma of Revelation, the revelation of John the Beloved, how that the angelic beings are often compared to mighty stars. Let me tell you of the star focus of your divine presence within you. Let me tell you of your mighty threefold flame, which may to some of you appear but as a remote place upon the map of being. But, oh, precious ones, when the realities of life, the mighty realities, become interpreted by the soul as it ascends to the fount of divine wisdom and obtains the sacred keys, the revelations that you will receive about yourself, and I say this to you all, is so magnificent as to compel you to gaze forward, for you will no longer desire to look at former things, for former things shall have passed away, and all things shall be ever new joy, as the face of victory is turned to you, and you are aware of the mighty purposes of creation within the fount of light within thy mind, the fount of illumination that makes of the finite mind the mind of God, and makes of mortal mind the mind of Christ by the transforming power of the Holy Spirit. Do you realize, precious ones, that on this day throughout the land, when mankind are shooting off their rockets and are exploding various devices in order to celebrate the occasion of the 4th of July, of independence for the nation America, that God himself is also engaged in the practice of celebrating the independence of man from all forms of self-created tyranny. For it was an act of God that in the early days of this nation America interceded between roughshod men and women and caused them to have the stamina, the courage, and the will to victory for the 13 sovereign states. You must understand then, precious ones, how that the power of God entered into the hearts of these men to formulate a rising courage in the face of an entrenched tyranny and a mighty temporal power. You must understand that there was a unity between the hearts of the individuals who dwelled in the different states of that blessed union. You must understand then, precious ones, how that today, with the passing of time and the remoteness of past historical events to the mind of present-day man, much of the glory and of the power, much of the struggle and the winning has been bypassed, so that the youth today, and even, I am sorry to say, some of those who are more mature, have lost sight, unfortunately, of the struggles that were necessary in the winning of victory for the nation America. You must understand then that the spiritual struggle, which is of such cosmic worth, must go on, and that high resolves must not become merely crystallized mental thought, but they must become vitalized cosmic action. You must recognize that as great cosmic beings and mighty masters of wisdom came down unto the planet itself, and in some cases spoke directly through the voices of the men of that time, and reinforced their courage by directly moving their lips to speak the words of God and of liberty, so in this day and age and in all times there is always some point of contact between the higher octaves and the planet itself. Else the light would go out, else darkness would come, else the vanities of men would so smother the flame that there would be no oxygen to supply it and to assure it a continued existence. The flame today requires the fanning of many sons of freedom and liberty. You are sparks of freedom intended by God to function not only in the social, political domain, but also in the spiritual domain, and most especially there, where you can help to quicken the sons of earth who have lost their way, to show them the pathway that leads to the mansions of light that are above, ever above. You must understand the pull of the senseless activities that in this present age are causing discouragement to mankind and a multiplication of the terrors of the dark. You must understand how that these things are generated, as the old man of the hills told you, by a reaction from the powers of darkness lashing out against the spiritual forces of light, the spiritual powers of light that would regenerate mankind and bring in the golden age, the forces and powers of shadow functioning behind the flesh forms of individuals by tricking their minds and emotions, have today created a commercial gargantua which threatens to engulf the entire planet with an opposing contradictory force to the socially and communistic-minded countries of the world, directly in order to bring about the destruction of the world society. They do not care, my beloved brothers and sisters, whether or not they destroy the earth. They do not care whether or not they create chaos. They do not care whether or not the Spirit of Christ is fashioned in this day, and the great carpenter of Nazareth is able to build and reconstruct a new world. Nay, they would prefer a shambles, which would mean the utter destruction of all planetary life. They would rejoice in the destruction of mankind. For I want you to remember that if they were able to destroy the life that you now have upon this planet and to leave mankind to abide in other realms outside the body, in, so to speak, the naked state of their souls, it would come to pass that there would indeed be a gnashing of teeth, for there would not be enough individuals left upon the planet to assure mankind re-embodiment for centuries, and many would have to wait in the great wings of the stage of life until the earth could be rebuilded gradually. Also, there is the possibility, if their activity should become ultra-destructive, that they would completely render the earth uninhabitable for so many generations that it would be necessary to transfer the life waves of this planet to another home and to start mankind all over again in the arduous business of mastering life as you know it, from the age of prehistoric man unto the present day. Look you well then to your victory. Look you well then to your life. It may seem to you to be as but a firefly flitting across the swamps of life, and you may say, but in a few short years I shall be no more in this embodiment as myself. Let me tell you, precious ones, that life is precious. Let me tell you, precious ones, that the gathering of opportunity is the summation of your life. Let me tell you that if you were to see the activity at inner levels that accompanied your own birth, your natal day, you would realize that there was a universal conspiration for the manifestation of each one of you that caused you to come forth into this realm, to gather all of the substance of previous embodiments and focus all of that within the records of Akasha and tie that to your four lower bodies, that you might move here to take advantage of cosmic opportunities and to understand the need to draw yourselves into the fullness of cosmic purpose, to fulfill the divine plan, the purposes of your All-Father. Wise then is the one who understands the need to perpetuate and preserve life wherever possible, so long as possible, because each individual life is sacred, and sacred is the opportunity that gave you birth. Sacred is the opportunity that gives you the opportunity to win your victory. And you must understand then that it is up to you to reinforce the great power of life within form, for life within form has purpose. Life within form has divine purpose. While it is true that it is intended to be a schoolroom opportunity whereby you can master experience here and win your victory into higher realms where you will require not this fleshly body, but a new body of light. Yet, until you have won your perfection, I assure you that you have a need for a flesh form, and therefore do not lightly consider the possibility of discarding that form which God and the elementals have so carefully and beautifully builded. You must understand that your body, which is the temple of God, houses an immortal soul intended to become, as your own Master Moria is, an illustrious being of light. If then you are to understand correctly your destiny, you will esteem cosmic purpose for yourselves individually. Oh, how treacherous is the thought, and I assure you that we teach this in our schools upon Venus. How treacherous is the thought that would rob from man his immortal birthright and make him to feel belittled. Belittlement is one of the most horrible and awful, one of the most treacherous forces that has ever been generated in the universe by the nefarious consciousness of the sons of darkness. Let me point out to you then that you should never attempt to belittle any individual upon this planet, but to raise mankind up. For so do ye the work of the Venusian masters, and so do ye the work of the Lord Christ. The work of raising mankind up is perpetual, and the help that cometh through you both day and night is a work of magnitude that spans the foreverness of God. You must recognize that you are co-workers and co-servers with the powers of light, for so it was intended. You must recognize that you are children of cosmic love, for so it was intended. You must recognize that your destiny is absolute mastery of self and the power to walk the earth as a God, fashioned in the very image of God, for so was it intended. You must recognize that you were intended to be the fullness of all that God is. And if this seemeth unto you to be so high that you cannot imagine yourselves in that role, then call unto me, and I will give you my momentum of victory, which overcometh the world and all of its thoughts of belittlement and smallness, all of its thoughts of limitation, that seems to squeeze you into the mold of finite qualities. I am victory, and I tell you that your victory is at hand. I am victory, and I tell you that the powers of light and the cosmic councils are determined that mankind shall escape from the awful traps which have been laid to rob them of many of their rightful powers, the power to escape from all of the traps that have been laid in past generations, regardless as to whether or not they were karmically involved, the power to escape into the great temple of mercy at Peking, to understand that Kuan Yin there sits this very hour and meditates as to how she can draw upon the souls of men, that she may draw them to her and send them forth as sons and daughters into the world to create the quality of mercy and sustain that quality in life until all of the cruelty is taken out of man, transmuted from his consciousness, and he is set free. Won't you please be seated? Oh, gracious ones, how lovely is the spirit of overcoming. These are they that have overcome. These are they that have overcome. These are they that have overcome. What have they overcome? Mortal thought, density, the accretion and accumulation of years of wrong sowing. If this be true, then we give no power to the opposition, but recognize it you must. You must recognize it by turning unto us with each thrust that they make against you. If you cleave unto us, if you hold our hand, if you enter our consciousness, if you permit your consciousness to enter ours, if there is unity between us, then I do not think any power in heaven and earth can separate you from the love of God. But you must understand that every positive statement requires the reinforcement of the power of action within your world. You must understand that it is not enough for us to utter a statement for and on behalf of your victory unless you accept that statement and believe it, unless you act upon it and are tied to it and united to it. This is one of the reasons, precious ones, why down through the centuries and even as late as your time, even 20 and 40 years past, various dictations have come forth from our realm and octave, which have promised unto mankind their victory and given to mankind certain inalienable rights, which are indeed given to them, but which they have not claimed. I want you to know, precious ones, that we have made our promises and we have fulfilled every one of them. But there has been and always will be a dual tie to all promises. We may make our promises, but they are not without certain conditions which must be met by unascended mankind. You do not think, surely, that we are required to make you a promise to give you our support and assistance, and then turn around and function at your level to receive that promise, do you? You certainly do not expect that we shall give to you our energy and our love, and then also move your hands to take it. I tell you, you have a very definite responsibility, and it has been and still is the lack of mankind's awareness of this, whereby they expect us to perform for them, and they expect Almighty God to perform for them all of the acts which He has given to them to perform for themselves by volens, 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 will, will, will. And it is will that must be generated within you for strength, 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 and power, 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 until you will become masters of yourself, rather than be mastered by outer conditions which will bring you into bondage and keep you there if you do not watch out. You have heard it said that certain parents would frighten their children by the statement that goblins will get you if you don't watch out. Well, I want to tell you today that these things are more or less true, but the goblins are within the consciousness of men, and they ought to be vanquished therefrom by the immortal power of victory. Teach your children that they are required by the law of God to serve with alacrity, to understand, as Samuel did of old, that when God speaks, men must answer. The compelling power of universal law is resident within mankind, but it will not act unless men call it into action. God has implanted a certain segment of Himself within you, which is a seed of spiritual will, and every quality of God is within you. But you do not realize it. It passes unnoticed and unrecognized while you look at the weaknesses of yourselves and say, "This is I." It is not yourself. It has no part of you. And I tell you today that if you do not rid yourself of those concepts, you will be placing yourself in the realm of stultification and stratification, and mankind will type you, and they will say, "This is that individual," and it will be so, and they will cast you in a mold, and it will be true, because you have done nothing to take yourselves out of that mold. Therefore, because the time is short, and the power of light demands it, and the great cosmic law requires it, today, I tell you that we are hopeful that we will find, even in this audience, as well as in the student body who will hear these words and read them, those responsive individuals who will have the faith in my statements, for I come from a mighty evolution of cosmic beings, and from the realm where dwell the holy 7 Kumaras upon Venus, and I know whereof I speak. I know whereof I speak. I know whereof I speak. For the great council at Darjeeling, the Royal Teton Council, and all of the councils of the Great White Brotherhood, including the mighty council upon the Pleiades, have determined that the earth shall receive, as it were, the flash of a comet's tail of cosmic dust, which shall activate among mankind some of the divine principles, which will then come forward to be redeemed. Those who do not redeem them may find that the power will act in reverse, and that they will turn somewhat the other way. It will be almost a reactive power. But we are determined to do this because it is necessary, because the time is short for the era of the golden age to now be brought in by those who have the wisdom to build it, that we must call mankind out of their lethargy and make them aware of the need to establish their victory within themselves as a focus of immortal light, which we can use, and use it quickly. You cannot know. It is impossible for you to know the energy the ascended masters have expended down through the centuries. And I tell you, it is impossible for you to know the energy that your Saint Germain has expended in this class, although he did not speak upon the program, to generate within your blessed hearts some of the wondrous momentum of freedom which he has, and which you need, and which the law requires that you keep. I say to you then today, in the name of Almighty God, do not let this class pass without making the resolve within yourselves which cannot be broken. And note the word resolve. It means to resolve your problems. It means to overcome the conditions that have brought unhappiness into your world. It means to make a determination that your own pursuit of happiness and life will bear some fruit upon the tree of life as well as upon the tree of liberty. Men want liberty, they want freedom, and they desire it, and they command it to come forth. But I tell you, one of the most important things for them to do is to recognize the responsibility they have toward liberty and freedom, to see that liberty and freedom are keyed into the vibratory action of life. And life is God, and God is law, and God is love. I hear people saying we have patience when they have none. I hear people saying we have love when they exhibit no love. I hear people say we are children and students of the light when they have little light, and the light that is in them is but darkness. The time is past when mankind can go on fooling themselves year after year. This is a year of victory by the power of divine love, and you better get rid of all of the conditions that are affecting your world, your health, your mind, and your status in life if you want to obtain your victory, or the first thing you know, the sands in the hourglass will have run out, and we will have no one to represent us, no one to carry our torch, no one to guide mankind, who dwelling in a darkened world of abomination and desolation will find life not worth living. I tell you then, this is the hour of decision. I tell you this is the hour of affectation, not the affectation of little mortal things that do nothing for your soul, but the affectation of eternity. And if you are able today to see the Pleiades in all of their brilliance and glory, to see the great temples of the brotherhood even at Shambhala, to enter into the vibratory action of God in the secret and sacred places of the earth that you have never been, I tell you, your hearts would beat with pride and joy in all the creation, and there would be no mutterings against the mighty God and the Prince of Peace, but only the receptive, humble attitude that would say, "Oh, by my God, let me live. Oh, by my God, let me give. Oh, by my God, let me strive. Oh, by my God, I am alive." Don't you see, precious ones, what your victory means? Your victory means everything to you. Your victory is your life. It is all of the divine plan fulfilled for all of the centuries of striving. Every angelic being has labored for this. Everyone has strained until the very ropes themselves that connect with the higher octaves are taut and tense with the hope of glory. Cosmic exhilaration flows over this great network, and yet responses are little. Let me see a change in you. Let me see a change in you. Let God see a change in you. He created you. Let Saint Germain see a change in you. He sustains you. Let Jesus see a change in you. He gave everything that mankind might have, his teachings and his life. I tell you, the day is here when you must recognize that God has thundered as from Horeb's height, and thundered in your midst. You may hear a mighty peal of thunder, and I tell you it is the mighty thunder of the apocalypse. It is the coming forth of the four horsemen. And I tell you that you must manifest your victory now, or your victory will be gone for ages rolling on and on. I have spoken, and God has spoken through me. It is the reflection of the solemnity of the council, and yet there is joy and mirth in us, for we hope there is worth in you. God bless you, God sustain you, God love you. Assert your independence, for your I am presence is your independence. Depend upon it, and let it depend on you. In this mutual relationship, such joy will come forth as to sweep the earth, and then this activity will flourish as a vehicle and instrument to God, and be absorbed in the end as a mighty activity of light into the great white brotherhood which gave it birth, with hope, with joy, with worth, with mirth. I thank you, and I say, victory is my name.
flames heat white hot the forge. But let wisdom temper the blade, and let men understand the thrust that will rightly sever from them those mortal connections which have restrained the soul from right action, in many cases spanning centuries, and ejecting men from the best seats within the holy temple of Almighty God. How often has families and family situations here below acted to restrain individuals from doing the will of God? Wedded they are not to spirit, but to flesh and blood, which cannot inherit the kingdom of God. And yet their hearts beat in anticipation of the receipt within themselves of the triumvirate of righteousness, of faith, of hope, and of charity. Let them understand then that it is not the will of God to create schism and division, but when the choice must be made, God must not be defrauded, and the law must stand supreme. I am here this night to strengthen the resolves of all men who will accept the vibratory action of the Chohan of the first ray. And I am here that you may understand that the power of love is to carry forth the will of God into the arena of action, let the chips fall where they may. You must understand that those of us in the ascended realm have had through the years and centuries, even most specifically during the years preceding our ascension, many magnificent choices to make, some of which were very difficult. I say magnificent, precious ones, because I want you to know that when we made a choice for and on behalf of the light and the cause of right, that choice was often as the thrust of an old wound and the opening of an old wound in our souls. For the pampering of self over the years has been very great, and men are often wont to weep, and I have said men are often wont to weep for the little trinkets and baubles of life which seem to have a great deal of meaning for them. I am aware of the power of sentiment. I am aware of the power of mortal love, and I thoroughly understand it. And I must admit that even from the ascended state, there is a tendency within myself, as an old softy, which I scarcely prefer to admit, to turn to the world and say, believe me, if all those endearing young charms which I gaze on so fondly today were to fade by tomorrow, yea, fade in my arms like fairy gifts fading away, thou wouldst still be adored. You must understand that I, too, have had my attachments, and I also admit to you that I am attached to many of you who have long served our cause, and I have borne with you, sometimes interceding for you before the courts of heaven, to give you another chance specifically when you were in danger of being cut off by some karmic action which you perhaps were not even aware of. You must understand then that our love, that is the love of ascended friends of light, while it seeks to always align itself with the karmic law and with the cause of right and cosmic might, does, in many cases, as it did full well in the case of Helena P. Blavatsky, come full circle through some measure of ascended master attachment to a soul that has long served our cause, or to a soul who has sought to serve our cause, but for reasons perhaps known best to the karmic board, have sometimes failed to fulfill all that they intended to and all that they vowed to do at inner levels. You must understand that this is not incompatible with the law of our being, for we too have and hold the loving attachment to those souls that we have known of old. And there are individual divine friendships between ascended masters and unascended beings. For the great gulf supposedly fixed between the octaves of light does not exist for us in any great degree, where we are dealing with ascended master friends below whose hands are reaching up to us for help and assistance at the same moment simultaneously that we are holding our hands down to give that assistance. You must understand that God sometimes himself winks at mortal ignorance, and we are no exception, and certainly not as efficient as your heavenly Father in the manifestation of what man might suppose to be absolute justice. And therefore it is absolutely true, whether men choose to like it or not, that we have interceded for and on behalf of some of the mankind of earth who serve our cause when they fell, blessed ones, into some pitfall of their own creation, but in most every case they were not fully aware of that which they did, and therefore it was our intercession as an act of mercy that enabled our chelas to stand upon their 2 feet and recover themselves when they had lost their balance. Now, precious ones, I think that some of you are aware of the fact that in some cases, and in many cases, in fact, we have sponsored individuals to our own hurt, and we have lost some significant gain at cosmic levels for and on behalf of our pledges made for unascended beings when those unascended beings did not redeem those pledges by the cosmic honor which we hoped they would. But then I think many of you will understand this, for you also have no doubt in your many embodiments, and even in the present one, have suffered some such sad experience in the loaning of money, or the giving of gifts, or the serving of some life stream, who later proved that they were not worthy of the trust which you had for them. This is always what one might term a sad experience, but it can be a glad experience if you will understand that you often gain and obtain wisdom thereby, and also you must understand that you yourselves may have performed a similar act in a past embodiment to that self-same individual, so that it may in many cases, and it is in many cases, but the fulfillment of a just debt and recompense. You must then understand also that there are certain debts sometimes owed to mankind and even animal life by individuals before their ascension, which was not fully and completely balanced by the great law, for after all the passports to heaven should not be canceled simply because there is one little jot or tittle that must be paid, especially when it is possible for those jots and tittles to be paid at inner levels after their ascension. For life before and after the ascension, where consciousness is concerned, is continuous and does not end. In the name of heaven, blessed ones, you do not think when you ascend that you are going to lose your consciousness, do you? Surely you must realize that your consciousness will be intensified, and you will have a greater wisdom as to how to serve your fellow man and to balance all of the negative things which you have done before. That is not doing the will of God. But certainly you must also understand that it is not the will of God that you tempt his laws by using this as a justification for the performance of inordinate acts. Hold the highest standard in all that you do, for your ideals must not be trampled upon, for after all they are your ideals, and they came to you from God, and they are mighty standards of perfection. To lower them consciously is ever a mistake, but because those upon the path are often beset on this side and that side by many actions which seek to overthrow them and trip them up, it is understandable that those who do things for God may in many cases make a little bit more mistakes than those individuals who are, shall we say, content to rest in the consciousness of their own life and world and do those things that please themselves and enjoy the baubles and trinkets of life, which certainly will not give them their freedom. But, precious ones, I wanted you to understand this so that you would realize that there are certain debts which are owed to unascended mankind by ascended beings, which debts must be paid. You then will, I am sure, be compassionate to us, that when you bind yourself by a conscious vow and pledge, and when we sponsor you in a specific act and blessing, which you would otherwise have had to wait many a year for, and perhaps even another embodiment, not securing your ascension without our intercession, you will certainly realize that it is a just and proper thing for any ascended being to expect those of you who receive and are the beneficiaries of such action to at least pay your honorable debts by keeping the vows that you have made and doing your best. Have we not a reason to expect that you should do your best? After all, is not the freedom of the earth at stake? And is not your own personal freedom at stake? How can men expect to cheat the law? I assure you that only a few have cheated the laws of human justice, for the science of human justice, the jurisprudence of mankind, is often very clever, and individuals are often trapped when they do not expect it by the outer world law and that system of justice which mankind have codified over the centuries. You must understand then that regardless of the fact that there is a great deal of miscarriage of justice in the world, that ultimately and sometimes more swiftly than you realize, justice does bring to the courts of God and to the courts of divine justice those individuals who have prided themselves upon their clean escape from the law. Ponder on that one. I assure you that if the law of love did not act in your world, and if your response to the ministrations of the many ascended beings who have addressed you to this class did not act in your world, then in spite of the fact that you yourselves might ignore all ministrations of love, the exactitude of the laws of heaven would require from you anyway the fullest and mightiest recognition of the law of your being, and you would be expected to pay the last farthing. This is in absolute keeping with the beloved Master Jesus' own teachings, and you must recognize then that it is much better to enlist in the cause of God by your own free will rather than to wait until the constable arrives and drafts you somewhat against your will to serve the cause of heaven. Now, I hope that you can appreciate the little humor which I am releasing here tonight, which may not be quite so funny to some individuals here, but will, if you will reflect upon it, provide for you a lash of the law, which God has himself spoken of, saying, "Those whom I love I chasten, and I scourge every son whom I receive." You have been blessed by the sweetness of Mary. Now you may smart under the words of Moria, for I am concerned that you do not become entirely surfeited by sweetness until you somehow or other are possessed with the idea that you can cheat the law and then escape. There are some individuals who have attended these classes in the past who have felt that any little occasion whereby they could absent themselves from the classes would be engaged in. And they would go here and they would go there, doing exactly what they pleased. Let me tell you, you have your free will. God has not taken from you your free will, and I assure you that Moria will not take from you your free will either. But I do not wish you to suffer from an abused mind. I wish you to understand that the vipers of mortal thought and feeling which have attached themselves to the mortal mind are your enemies. I wish you to understand that when certain ideas come to you which you think are your own, which tell you to do things which are against the will of God, that these forces that seek to drive into your world are your enemies. And whether or not they come through you, or through your family, or through your best and beloved friend, they ought to be totally disregarded, for it is the love of the law that will give you your ascension and win for you your victory. And I am driving home tonight the idea of individual responsibility to the will of God. You may think in your outer self that you are doing a perfectly beautiful job, and you may be. But it does not harm you in the least to examine the fabric and content of your own mind from time to time and see whether or not by co-measurement the standards of life are being upheld by yourself. You know, precious ones, I did smile considerably at the beautiful statement that Saint Germain made at the conclusion of one of his addresses at a former class when he said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? Why, I am." Now you know, blessed ones, that Saint Germain did not mean by that what some people might take him to mean. He did not mean that the human outer self was the fairest of them all. He wanted you to realize that this was a trick and a trap. He wanted you to realize that the fairest of them all is your I am presence. And this is your best, your nearest, and your dearest friend. And if perchance you seem to feel that you have lost contact with your presence at a certain given time, do not be affrighted. For as long as your heart is beating, you are in contact with your divine presence. For this is the source of your life and the content of all the energy that is given into your world, which comes through that blessed silver cord, connecting you to your divine presence and passing through your holy Christ self. You must understand then that you will never be separated from your divine presence. And this is only a fraudulent idea which the nefarious powers of darkness from time to time try to cast upon you and hope that you will accept it hook, line, and sinker. For they want you to be caught on the line that they are trying to feed you from time to time, sometimes in the darkness of the night, that your faults are too many and that God does not love you. I assure you that God does love you, and because he loves you, he has sent me here tonight to give you some disquieting experience insofar as the mortal self is concerned, that you may be able to properly balance all the sweetness and light and all the instruction of the other masters who have spoken to you. And I have said to the Lord Mahachohan, I am willing to brave the elements of human thought and feeling. And if they choose to dislike me for my frankness, then I will return to the courts of heaven unabashed, for I will know that I have done the will of God. Oh, gracious and beloved ones, how I love you. How I love you. How I love you. Thank you for your rising tribute. Won't you please be seated? Now then, I come to a part of my instruction where I want to draw you very close to the will of God. You know, in one of the first pearls of wisdom, that I released to the Summit Lighthouse many years ago, I said, with merriment in my eyes, a twinkle of mirth is needed on earth. And yet sometimes it seems as though I would fool you a bit as I come into your midst, because it is necessary that I use the sword of the Chohan of the first ray in order to make you aware of the need not to pamper yourself. For I have been tempted many times in sitting by my own fireside in England and in India and in many parts of the world to do many things which mankind might today look askance at, even some of the more Christian individuals in the world who have so many false standards which they adhere to. For example, while I use no tobacco in the ascended level, and I certainly frown upon its use by individuals who would have the fullness of their divine self revealed, I full well recognize that individuals who use it, as well as those who use a forked tongue for gossip, must, until they are satisfied that they can overcome those conditions, live with them, even as I lived with myself, for I used tobacco at one time myself, and am full aware of the need to sometimes work most diligently to break the filthy habit which caused me a great deal of struggle in one of my own embodiments. Now some of you may choose to challenge me historically on this if you wish, but I think that I know what I am talking about concerning myself, for I have lived my own life. I would like to call to your attention then that the many so-called faults of mankind are not nearly so great as mankind often make them, for they are like a ripe plum. They will drop to the earth of their own weight at a certain point when the connection to the tree is broken because they have ripened. Some individuals are not satisfied with that, for there are a great many facets in their life which are dedicated to the will of God, and there is a great wholeness in many people who have outer faults which are not often forgiven by other individuals, but they are forgiven and winked at by us, for we know full well that it is the internal heart of man's being which must be considered in assessing the opportunities of life that we can give to students upon the path. Therefore, we have in many cases permitted individuals whom certain individuals thought were not worthy to occupy worthy positions in our service. And I hasten to assure you that mortal judgment has no right to pass upon the life of another and say to another, you are not worthy. But now I wish to get down to brass tacks with you. You have no right either to say that you are not worthy yourself because of a certain fault or a certain manifestation in your world. Yes, get rid of it you must, for you yourself are the one with the greatest thrust to see that you do. And you yourself are the one that are most discomfited by it. We have learned to live with the immaculate concept. We have learned to live as God does, and he certainly does not spend his time being concerned about the faults of men whom he has created in perfection and given free will and sent them forth into the far country, that there in the far country of experience they might master all things and return home to him. I do not deny that the will of God is for men to be free of all faults. But until they are blessed ones, you must be practical and admit that until the moment that the last fault is dropped from the tree of their life, they have them. And, as St. Germain said a long time ago, do not speak too much of lice, or you might have them. You must understand then that if people have lice until they have washed themselves clean and free from that, they certainly will manifest a quality which is undesirable to other men. But we have stood in many a place upon the earth, in many a sweaty congregation, and spoken of spiritual things which have caused them to desire to eliminate body odor. And in this connection, I would like to say to all of you that human cleanliness is indeed, as has been told you, next to godliness, and it does engender in the consciousness of individuals a greater awareness of the beauty of heaven. For order is heaven's first law, and the cleanliness of the body temple is essential for all individuals to practice at all times. And therefore St. Germain has asked me tonight to remind the students in this place and throughout the field that bodily filth is not a desirable quality to bring into the temple of God, and therefore a certain amount of necessary sanitary bathing is essential to your happiness. Now, some of you may think it strange that the Chohan of the first ray should speak on such a simple subject as washing your hands. And I suppose you expect me at any moment to recite the nursery rhyme, "This is the way we wash our hands, this is the way we wash our hands, this is the way we wash our hands," so early in the morning. But I tell you this, your bright and cleanly scrubbed faces will help you to envision the radiance of God, and it will help you in other ways that you do not know of. I therefore plead for an absolute state of cleanliness on the part of all the student body, that you may have the matrix within your world that will attract the spiritual beings of life and the angelic host. For I tell you, even food between your teeth and particles thereof, which is the subject of a great deal of laughter in many cases, is actually very repellent to the angelic host, particularly when it has reached the state of decay. I would also like to call to your attention that wilted flowers in the home attract entities, and there are many individuals who have had nightmares simply because they did not put out rotting fruit and flower from the home. I tell you that the entities and denizens of the nether world feed upon decaying substance and upon all human filth and offal, which ought to be removed wherever possible from the consciousness and homes of mankind by improved systems of sanitation. I am telling you these things because you are preparing for the highest offerings. You are preparing for the greatest spiritual manifestation that has ever swept the earth, and the great white brotherhood wants sanitation to be in the minds and consciousness of the children of the light, so that you may be perfect examples to the family of nations, and that America, which today boasts a larger number of indoor toilets than any other nation upon the planet, is indeed a nation that is conscious of sanitation. But what value is sanitation if it is not used, precious ones? And there are many individuals today who are coming into the light, and this will come about in a greater measure in time to come, who will find it desirable through a mere human habit of laziness and sluggishness to not wash themselves and keep their outer physical world clean. It is very essential then that as in the days of Moses in the wilderness, we shall teach and expound upon sanitation to the people so that they may bask in the brightness of the law that cleanliness is next to godliness, but I assure you is no substitute for it. For I have seen people who are so clean without that even the angels were a bit envious, so to speak, and those individuals had in their mind and consciousness the most tremendous human filth that you can ever imagine. You must understand then that we are practical men, and we desire to bring you greater blessings than you have ever had before. But in order to bring you these blessings, we must be certain that you will be prepared to receive them. Now, I know that some of you who are indeed so very clean in your personal self will appreciate that I am not singling you out as a target in the midst of this very clean group, but I am speaking because my words will be printed and bound, and because they will go forth and be read, and they will help and improve any number of our blessed brothers to understand a way by which they can draw greater measures of perfection, cosmic perfection, to themselves and hold that perfection for a longer period of time. You yourselves, precious ones, and I speak quite frankly, do not enjoy standing next to individuals who are plagued with an unfortunate so-called halitosis. You have heard it said that even your best friends will not tell you, and of course I think that you were told once before that your best friend should tell you. But now I would like to have you take upon yourselves the responsibility of the correction of these conditions before they occur, and teach your children and those who come under your dominion to observe these laws. For we are in a time of great strain and stress in this battle of Armageddon, and I assure you with all my heart that the role that nefarious entities play in the destruction of man is very great, and the homes of men and women must be kept clean in order that they may quite naturally repel entities who find nothing to feed upon in the clean home and the clean body temple. I quote to you the words of beloved Hilarion when he was embodied as St. Paul. I quote to you those words, precious one, that your bodies are the temple of the living God, and the Spirit of God dwells and abides within you. Precious ones, you must get on with the bands. You must get on with the service of God, the picking up of the messages of the other ascended masters who have preceded me, and the picking up of the great thread of victory and love that will come to you tomorrow. You must get on with the forging of the great links of freedom that through the Summit Lighthouse will reach out into the world and cause the world to be blessed in a fulfilled and untold measure. You must understand that all of the foregoing messages must be assimilated. They must be carried out, and the will of God must be strengthened. You must shore up yourselves and the souls of your being. You must prepare to fight the battle of Armageddon to a successful conclusion. And I want you to know that not only does the Chohan of the First Ray stand behind you, and all of the great members of the Darjeeling Council, but your own mighty angelic presence stands behind you, and the whole universe of light is behind you, and the powers of the heaven will be shaken, and they will proceed to envelop you with ever new joy, and that which shall be will spell an end one day to all that has distressed you and bound you, and you will rejoice and rejoice and rejoice as we do in light. But until we do, labor not in vain, but labor well, for the Lord has need of harvesters, for the fields are white unto the harvest. I have told you that I would see you here, and I hope this night that as you go to sleep, you will envision me for a few moments, that I may envelop you here in Colorado Springs with my radiance and love. And I promise not to be naughty. For tonight, I will convey a very loving charm to you. But I leave it up to you whether you have time for me, for then I will have time for you. Bless you, beloved and dear hearts. Bless you who love the law too much to break it. Bless you who love the law too much to shake it. Bless you who love the law too much to fake it. For the law is also love. I thank you and bid you a pleasant good evening. have heard from the inimical Master Moria. I never know what he's going to do. Sometimes Master Moria has spoken in absolutely a half hour of the most magnificent metaphor you've ever heard, tumbling out in phrases to stir the soul. Then again, he's used the whip. Then again, he's been so loving and sweet that I think he even surpassed some of the other masters in lovingness. I just never know what he's going to do. And I want to tell you that as I was sitting there before I got up, I said, Master Moria, I'm yours to command. You do what you want to. If you want to cut up, you cut up. If you want to be serious, you be serious. I'll say whatever you tell me to say. Whatever words you put through me, I'll assent to and I'll consent to. And so, while I assume no responsibility for them, being that they are completely the words of the sponsor, I must confess that I do enjoy some of his greatest severity, because I know that he really means it. And don't anyone here ever think that he doesn't. And as someone said, they like to have Moria spank them. I have only one comment to make on that, and I think he approves of it. And that is, I don't think we ought to do anything to deserve that spanking, because I think he'd rather not have us deserve it. But I think he has a great purpose in everything that he does. So thank you all, and I will ask Elizabeth to dismiss this service so that you can get to your rooms and get into attunement with the Master, remembering his sweet face. And as you drop off into the blessedness of slumber and into the arms of Morpheus, you can think of the great Master, and I hope that you all are blessed with the charm that he will give to you. So we thank you for this blessed day, for all you have done to make it possible for that day. God bless you tonight and every night.